Just about every country is examining the threat level of Bitcoin and blockchain technology, from both a terrorism financing perspective and from being disrupted or left behind at an economic level for their country. But as governments balance being intrusive on their citizens, they also seek to benefit from the Bitcoin industry and the growing cryptocurrency market capitalizations into their respective countries. Also, we know companies like Chainalysis are working with the IRS and many governments around the world to track every Bitcoin address and transaction on the public blockchain, which is essentially all of them. So what are some of the ways citizens and transactions are being tracked around the world? Is it possible for Bitcoin to maintain your identity, your actions, or to stay anonymous? And what are some of the details you need to know to protect your privacy with Bitcoin? Let's discuss. Hey everybody, I'm Gary Palmer Jr., you're you, and together, welcome to Minting Coins. So there's a lot of information that we want to go over and continue bringing to everybody out there into the world. There's a lot of information in terms of how the world is changing and evolving in finance and technology. And part of that changing and evolving is continuing to understand the flow of money, the flow of economies, and how people and transactions are being placed all across the world. At least that's from the perspective of the governments around the world who want to have every single detail to understand every single transaction that happens. And while it's become more difficult to do with technology like Bitcoin and blockchain technology, and extremely difficult to do, if not impossible, with technology like Monero, Zen Cache, and other privacy-based cryptocurrencies like that, it's not stopping the powers that be, the governments and the corporations, from understanding how these transactions are flowing and really taking advantage of the centralization aspects of the technology that exists, particularly with Bitcoin. So we're going to go over some of the ways that these transactions are being tracked on the different traditional finances and Bitcoin finances of the world. And then we're going to talk about some of the ways that you can help protect your privacy and your identity with the Bitcoin blockchain and some of the options out there that are available that promise to provide an even greater level of privacy and or anonymity. So with that being said, let's jump into the market, take a peek at the cryptocurrency weather, if we will, look at the news that we have in the show, and then let's discuss. All right, so quickly starting over here at coinmarketcap.com, taking a look at what's going on, living in a world with over 1,227 different cryptocurrencies listed and a total market capitalization north of $175 billion. It's looking very good. 24-hour volume is relatively high, we'd say, at $6.3 billion. And the BTC dominance we saw earlier today, over 57%. Now it's 56.7%. So there's a ton of money continuing to flow, not only into the market cap of all cryptocurrencies overall, but there's a lot of money continuing to flow specifically into Bitcoin. So with that being said, it is sort of interesting to take a look at where some of this money is and isn't going. And just real quick, we see that the market capitalization of Bitcoin is almost past that $0.1 trillion mark again at $99.3 billion. The per Bitcoin price currently $5,968. So it's almost going to hit that $6,000 price. And once it crosses that $6,000 price, about then, that's when we see that $100 billion market cap. The past 24-hour trading volume has been 2.2 billion. And we see that down here at Bitcoin Cache, the trading volume has been just about 2 billion for Bitcoin Cache, and Bitcoin Cache has swollen up 20%, a whole 16 or 15% more than Bitcoin BTC in the past 24 hours. So a lot of the money that's coming into the cryptocurrency market space right now is coming into Bitcoin Cache. And then we see it went up in the past couple of days here, and then we see a little bit of a drop in the 7-day chart. Really interesting to see the politics continue to move forward with Bitcoin Cache. I mean, Bitcoin Cache is interesting for a black swan type of event. But overall, it really seems that the growth and the momentum is coming in to the Bitcoin BTC proper. Now, with that being said, none of this is financial advice, and there's lots of risks involved. We think it's important for everyone in the world to have a little bit of Bitcoin, just because it's fun and it's exciting, and it's definitely an opportunity, to say the least. But I do want to recognize that a lot of money is coming into Bitcoin and all of cryptocurrency, and for the Bitcoin price to be going this high, this quick, even at $6,000 from where it was a year ago, which was about $800. So it's a lot of money, over $5,000 in the past 12 months. And so a lot of this money is coming from big money, whales, hedge funds, very wealthy investors. And so just as easily as that money goes into Bitcoin and all these different alternative currencies, it can just as easily come out, right? Looking down here at number 8 on the coin market cap, you have BitConnect. And a lot of people say a lot of different things about BitConnect, and most of those things are not good. People really say that BitConnect is on the edge of disaster. They say that about all these different cryptocurrencies, but they say BitConnect is a Ponzi scheme. The way BitConnect looks to us, looks like people that are making money in the backs of the people who are coming in after that, which is different in the value than that it's provided, because there is no value other than getting more people to use BitConnect. It's not like Bitcoin, where there's an ecosystem and an economy and a whole industry backed up and behind it. And so this whole $1.6 billion in BitConnect can so easily come out of BitConnect and into the other altcoins. It could totally crash that market. The big money inside the rest of the space, it's very exciting, but just recognize there's a lot of risk with what's going on. And there's going to be huge swings of volatility for years and years to come. Yeah, so check us out on Facebook. We're always posting and reposting really interesting articles about things that are happening in the world. And it'd be really interesting, to connect with you on Facebook at facebook.com/mintingcoins and talk about some of the things that are going on. And then we bring some of those conversations over to mintingcoins.com. For example, we have this whole petro-yuan seeking to possibly upset the petrodollar. And it's definitely a topic of conversation that people have in this world. So we could talk about that over on those channels. Turning to the first article that we're talking about today, talking about the risks of cryptocurrency, not just the risks of cryptocurrency inside the country, but there's also risks of these countries not having cryptocurrency. And we're recognizing that more and more of these countries are recognizing that it's going to be important for them to have this new currency, these new commodities, these new digital assets inside their borders, so that the people inside their borders, the companies inside their borders, will be able to have an exchange of value based on these new digital assets. And so more and more, it seems as if countries are hedging against too much restriction and too much regulation, preventing cryptocurrencies to really take off inside these countries. In this new policy, they're saying that there's a low risk of the country having to worry about this, and because of that, there is a lower need for them to have to regulate so strongly the cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency adoption in their countries. And so the report goes on to say that as the number of businesses accepting digital currency payments grows, there's an increasing risk of criminals using the currency to launder funds. And so they're just recognizing that there will be a risk, there will be a reason for the banks and the regulators to regulate cryptocurrency, but there's no need to stop cryptocurrency from moving forward in those countries. Allowing it cryptocurrencies to enter, and I'm sure they're recognizing that, especially since Russia and Putin are allowing the crypto ruble to exist in Russia. They're recognizing the risk that they're going to have if Russia has that dominance of those cryptocurrencies. And so what they're trying to do is that they're balancing their understanding of these different transactions. They want to know what every person is doing with all of their money, where every transaction is getting spent from person to person. And with that, people feel as if that's rather intrusive, and that's really difficult for people to accept that the government wants to have that much information. And it's not just, in an everyday sense of living their life in, say like a country like America currently, but this is more so for people when they're living in countries when the oppression increases and it becomes more extreme. And so governments around the world are using all this different technology to keep an eye on the citizens. And for example, in Europe, there's the MiFID, Market and Financial Instruments Derivatives, which is set to require every customer who transacts in securities to provide their passport number to every platform that they register on. And so it's taking the name of everybody, their exact identity as it's verified through something as extreme as the passport, and then, connecting that with other KYC information like your address and your phone number. And so, just to transact now, this is going to be required for these people to have, these passport numbers and this extreme vetting to the people's identity. And so they go on to say that as far as the know your customer norms are considered, no data is considered private. And that's not just in Europe. It also moves on inside the United States as well, where there's the Foreign Account Tax Compliant Act. And so what this act does is that it tracks every account of all U.S. citizens around the world, whether or not that they're residents of the United States. Their information, their social security numbers, their assets in the bank are all submitted to the IRS. And this is done because the government requires this of the foreign banks to ensure compliance. And if they don't comply, then this can cut the banks out of the loop, out of the system. And, that's not good for the banks. So it's better for the banks to connect and to comply than it is for the banks to maintain the privacy of the U.S. citizens and their borders. Also inside the United States, we reported before that the IRS was using Bitcoin tracking tools like the company Chainalysis to track essentially every Bitcoin transaction possible, tracking and tagging every address, every transaction, connecting it with other pieces of data around the world, and then giving that information to the IRS to allow the IRS to connect Bitcoin transactions to individual users to essentially track down people who are committing tax fraud and not paying their, not claiming and paying what the United States government sees as the appropriate amount of tax based on, those digital assets, those commodities, whatever the confusing law says it is. So, when we've seen this before, that there's hundreds and thousands of people who are buying Bitcoin, who are selling Bitcoin, but only about 500 people claimed Bitcoin on their taxes in 2016. So if you're buying and selling Bitcoin, I definitely recommend that you talk to a tax accountant, and I definitely recommend that you look into paying your taxes and that you actually pay your taxes, because if there's one thing that the government is sure about, it's that the people should pay their taxes. And it's how they got Al Capone, and don't let that be a reason to get in trouble. And it seems as if everyone is really, really serious about this, right? Because with Bitcoin and with taxes, we know the Bitcoin is not private. We know it's not anonymous. And we know that there's companies out there like Chainalysis that are tracking essentially every Bitcoin transaction possible. And this goes on and on across the world. India recently got rid of the $500 and $1,000 rupee. And and since then, now they're having this Aadhaar card, and this involves a collection of biometrics like fingerprints and IRS scans, and it's made mandatory for everything from receiving subsidies to filing income tax returns. This is just required, and it's linking. It's also the linking of bank accounts and mobile numbers to these unique Aadhaar numbers. And so the motto that they have over in India from their regulatory and financial perspective is to have 1 billion, 1 billion, 1 billion, a billion bank accounts linked to a billion phone numbers linked to a billion Aadhaar numbers. And so there's no privacy here, and there's no privacy when it comes to money. Let it be the traditional money, or let it be the cryptocurrency or the digital assets. Because as we all know from almost every level of the government, that the government's perspective, the government's attitude is that only criminals need to hide things, when in fact, privacy is essentially a basic human right that I think most people deserve, that I think every single person deserves. And, I think it's definitely a risk when we let powerful centralized organizations have every piece of information on every single person in the world without any sort of system of checks and balances. And it's really interesting that now with Bitcoin and blockchain technology, it's a way that everyone can have an equal access to a playing field. And even if this access isn't 100% private, it's access that can't be censored away or turned off, irrespective of what the government thinks and wants to do. But with that being said, it's definitely important for everyone to understand, what are the rules from the government's perspective? What are the rules from the Bitcoin perspective? And then where do you fall in terms of making the decisions that you want to make for yourself? Because again, with the Bitcoin and the Bitcoin blockchain, the IRS is using Chainalysis to track all these different Bitcoin transactions, scraping data from public forums, leaked data sources, including the dark web, exchange deposits, withdrawals, tagging and identifying both addresses and transactions. There's a lot of faulty practices that people have, that wallets have. There's a lot of wallets out there that are leaking data or selling your data. And that's making it easy for Chainalysis to track and tag and bag all that information. And we're going to talk about some of the ways that you can protect yourself in a moment. But that's why other tokens have really taken off. Other tokens into space since Bitcoin has been developed. People recognize that there needs to be cryptocurrencies that have stronger privacy. And so some of these cryptocurrencies that have manifested are cryptocurrencies and digital assets like Dash, Monero, Zcash, Pivx, Particle, and Zen Cache, and the Zen Cache secure nodes that we're going to be talking about in the next video after this one. So, but before we get into that, just want to go over some information over at bitcoin.org and maybe some things that you need to know about Bitcoin. It's important that you know how to secure your wallet. It's important that you know that the Bitcoin price is volatile. It's important that you know that the Bitcoin payments are irreversible. And if you send a payment, you're not going to get that payment back. So it's very important that you double check your addresses, you double check your agreements, that that you test your transactions, because this is a world where we need to take responsibility for ourselves, and we need to take responsibility for our actions, because instead of living in the old world where if there's a problem, we just go to the centralized bank and we have them take care of everything for us and we don't have to worry about anything. And we have to live with the risk that we are all in right now, of the banks having this repeated cycle of market crashing. Bitcoin is providing an opportunity where you can be your own bank, where you can take your own control, but it also requires you to take your own responsibility. Also, Bitcoin is not anonymous. And you have to put an effort to protect yourself and protect your privacy with Bitcoin, if that's even possible right now. Because there's just a lot to know, there's a lot to understand, and a lot of work is required for you to get the greatest benefit of Bitcoin. Bitcoin isn't just having your private keys. It definitely starts with having those private keys, but there's so much more, not too much more, but there's so much more that you can do to give yourself greater control, greater perspective, greater power, greater everything over the Bitcoin blockchain and your inclusion, your participation of that Bitcoin blockchain. Also, a couple quick notes. Unconfirmed transactions aren't secure. You really want to make sure you have 1 to 3 transactions to get good reliability. You want to make sure you have at least 6 transactions for high value Bitcoin transfers. And it says here, according to Bitcoin.org, you want to have 30 confirmations are recommended during emergencies to allow human intervention. Because Bitcoin is still experimental, this is still very, very early in the game. Bitcoin has the potential to grow trillions and trillions, if not hundreds of trillions of dollars. And so there's a lot still to happen. That's why traditionally a lot of people talk about diversifying to some degree and hedging the bets. And that's why some people are holding on to some Bitcoin Cash. That's why, someone might have a Bitcoin and they're not selling their Bitcoin Cash or their Bitcoin Gold or the Bitcoin Segwit 2X. They're just going to hold those Bitcoins long term, and they're going to live with knowing that whichever one of those Bitcoins survive, then they're going to have that Bitcoin, as opposed to selling every single one of those forks. That just goes to the mindset of diversifying and hedging and hodling, which I think is proven to be the best way to excel in sort of any sort of area. And then, as we were talking about before, government taxes and regulations. So you definitely want to understand the government taxes and the regulations wherever you live in the world. And you want to recognize that 99.99 times out of 100, I'm sure you have to pay some sort of tax. And you definitely want to look into that because, that's an important aspect of being a citizen, I suppose. So in terms of protecting your privacy for Bitcoin, some things to know is that, to know and to understand clearly is that Bitcoin is traceable. Every Bitcoin address that has any Bitcoin that is sent or received any Bitcoin is listed since the very beginning on the Bitcoin public blockchain and will forever be listed there and will continue to be listed there forever moving forward. And so it's traceable. Even if they don't know exactly who you are, they will know every single address and transaction there. And so that's why it's really, really important that you use a new address every time to receive payments. And so if you're receiving donations, that donation address may be the same all the time. That's why you just use that donation address for the donation address and nothing else. But typically when you're sending and receiving the payments and addresses, you want to use a new address every time. And when a wallet doesn't use a new address every time, that's something that makes it easy for these other companies like Chainalysis to be tracking what's happening on the blockchain with greater ease. You also want to be really careful about using Bitcoin in public spaces. You want to be really conscious that your IP address can be logged when using Bitcoin. So, that's reasons why people do things to hide or protect their IP addresses, let it be VPNs or using, tools, other tools. It says here you might want to consider hiding your computer's IP address with a tool like Tor so it cannot be logged. So using Tor and hiding your IP address, there's a lot of things to go through if you want to super protect your identity. Mixing services, come with a lot of risks if you can even trust those to begin with. Let it be directly or indirectly if you can trust them, maliciously or, not maliciously. There's different reasons why you can and can't trust the mixing service, and there's definite limitations to those. As well as a lot of future and further improvements that need to come to the Bitcoin blockchain because, again, we're so very, very, very early in the space. And so over here for having excellent privacy, we have this excellent privacy page at bitcoin.org talking here, perfect privacy for received transactions, strong privacy for sent transactions, how it's compatible with Tor privacy, and has decentralized peer-to-peer discovery of the Bitcoin blockchain. Because what if every time you spent or received cash, all the transaction details were published to your Twitter or your Facebook for everyone to see? Then you probably wouldn't want to use cash evermore if that was like an automatic posting, right? It would question every time you wanted to spend money if you wanted people to have that information, right? Because having your name to, where money's coming from to where money's going to is not private. And having it go from a Bitcoin address to a Bitcoin address is only potentially private. It's not anonymous, it's pseudo-anonymous. And so the aspect about that is that you can sign up for sending and receiving Bitcoins through something like Coinbase. You can do it through a service provider, or you can get set up to send and receive Bitcoins through having a Bitcoin full node running Bitcoin Core on some sort of machine that you control. And so the benefits of that is that no sign up is required. And so normally, if you want to sign up with some sort of service, say it's Coinbase. Coinbase is going to know your real name. It's going to know all the information about you. It's going to know all the information about the IP address where you sent the transactions, where it's coming, go, and where it's going to. If you use even a service like Green Address or BitGo, they are not going to know your real name, but they are going to know your Bitcoin balance. A service like BitGo or Green Address or Jax, they're going to know who you pay, where your money goes to, who pays you in some cases. You're going to know how much you spend, how much you receive. They're going to know the IP address that you're connected to. Jax, recognizes the IP address. That's why Shapeshift doesn't work if you're in some states with Jax, because they're basing it off the IP address. But if you're running the Bitcoin Core, then they're not, then no one knows your real name. No one knows your Bitcoin balance. No one knows who pays you and where the money comes and goes. No one knows how much is sent or received. No one even knows the IP address necessarily that you're connected to, where you're connected from. And then who can guess your information? Anyone can guess information. So this just goes on to say that we have the different privacy, perfect privacy for receiving transactions, because when you're running a Bitcoin Core full node, you're receiving every single transaction in the entire Bitcoin blockchain. And so if you receive every single transaction in the Bitcoin blockchain, there's no way to know which one of those transactions are being sent to you. And then there's very strong privacy for sent transactions. Because if you're using a wallet, it's very, very clear which transactions, like a Jax wallet or whatnot, it's very clear which transactions you're sending. But if you're, running a Bitcoin Core node, then there's so many transactions that are being relayed to random peers that it's very, very difficult to know, which one of those transactions came from you. Even though it could be potentially narrowed down, it's not as straightforward as running something like Jax. And so the Bitcoin Core just provides much greater privacy for sending the transactions. But in addition to that, the Bitcoin, running a full node is also compatible with Tor, and it helps disassociate your online activity from your IP address, which is too often closely associated with your real name because of all the activity you're normally doing online. You're connecting with Facebook, you're connecting with the bank, you're connecting with all these different websites, and every single website that you connect with your phone or your computer is being connected to your IP address. And so when you use Tor, you're disconnecting your activity online from your IP address. And then there's additional things you could do as well, such as setting up a Tor Hidden Service. You can go into the details here and click on this link and go to the Bitcoin Wiki and learn about Tor Hidden Services. Then you can connect mobile clients to your Bitcoin full node and increase even further your security and your privacy even when you're on the go. And then it also has the ability to have decentralized peer discovery, where again with your wallets are connecting directly to a particular node. And so the wallets are just being told, go to that node and connect with that node, where the Bitcoin Core full node, that's decentralized discovery on the network of what the actual Bitcoin blockchain is. And so it just provides more decentralized connectivity to the network instead of something that can be centrally manipulated. And so that's why there's, in a state of emergency, there's definitely a risk in using something that has, centralized points. Super interesting stuff. So I definitely recommend you go to the bitcoin.org website, check out these links in the show notes, and look into this information, read this information, get deeper, dive deeper into what is Bitcoin, what is Bitcoin Core, what is this information about Bitcoin. Even if you don't support Bitcoin Core, you can still get in here and you can still read about Bitcoin and understand the fundamentals of the technology. And then let us know if you have any questions in the comment box below or at mintingcoins.com or anywhere like that. And so as we mentioned before, in the next video, we're going to be talking about these Zen Cache and what's happening in Zen Cache. And we're really excited about Zen Cache, not a sponsored video, but that the Zen Cache has just released these Zen Cache secure nodes, and owners going to, node owners going to be minting 3.5% of new Zen coins. And that's going to provide new privacy and security services. It's going to be really, really interesting. So I'm really excited about going over that video with you tomorrow. And yeah, with that being said, feel free to come check us out at mintingcoins.com. Feel free to make a membership. If you're one of the first 500 members or so, then let us know if you'd like a free membership. Email us through the website, and we'd love to have you part of the community. Talk about any questions or concerns that you have. We're looking at all sorts of ways that we can make the website better, provide more information, and we're getting a lot of great ideas from everybody in the community. Yeah, that's really exciting. We're also excited about some future collaborations. We're excited about some future initiatives. There are a lot of discussions happening in the space. We started this channel less than a year ago. We've produced over 100 different videos. Really excited to bring the truest news, the realest news that's happening out there, instead of a lot of the fake news that we're seeing, that we're hearing about. Around Bitcoin and blockchain technology, where one hand is saying one thing, but the facts on the other hand really don't line up. And there's a lot of different dots out there. There's a lot of pieces of information out there. And I'm really excited to dive in and understand each of these in particular, and then connect these dots to help us understand what's really happening so we can have the best information to make decisions for ourselves moving forward. If you have any questions, put those questions in the comment box below. Check us out on Steemit. Like this video. Feel free to connect with us. I really want to know, what do you think? I really want to know what are your questions. I really want to know what are your concerns. And then we'll talk about them more as time goes on. Until then, I'm glad that together we are minting coins.